Thank you all very much for joining us today to learn about leveraging AI for communications. What we'll do today is go through a few AI-powered features that are part of Viva Engage. And while we talk through those features, we'll help communicate about how the technology works, so that everyone in the audience here can understand the ways that we're leveraging AI to build features that you can leverage for your communications. We'll also give more specific uses of these technologies in the context of Viva Engage. So for example, you'll hear a lot of our use cases that we describe in terms of when to use these features and how to use them will be centered around Microsoft Copilot adoption. So if you are looking to if you're looking to roll out Microsoft Copilot within your organization and get people actively using Microsoft Copilot, understanding the best ways to leverage it, getting those productivity benefits, how can you use AI in Viva Engage and Viva Engage overall to help make that happen? And we'll talk through that, but we'll also keep a mindfulness of the way that these AI features work to support Microsoft Copilot adoption could be used to support any goal that you have within your organization, which might include things like upskilling in ways that aren't Copilot related, or sharing best practices across teams, or making sure employee resource groups are as impactful as they possibly can be, or conducting culture campaigns so that everyone can better embody the values that are important to you and your organization. All right, so when it comes to communication, there are a few areas of, really challenges and opportunities. One is understanding that anytime we're communicating, we're joining a conversation that's already happening. So how can we get the best understanding of, what are the key themes of the conversation that we're communicating into? What is the sentiment? It's like an example would be if you're out there in the hallway and you've got a bunch of pockets of people and you want to join a conversation. How helpful might it be to understand a little bit about what each of these groups is talking about before we dive in and you're talking about, I don't know, how excited you are for the Star Wars stuff happening at Disney World, and they're like, well, actually, we were talking about generative AI, and you're like, okay, well, we can meet in the middle. But it's helpful, to see which conversation you want to join, how do you want to bring yourself into it, and AI can help with that. There's often a lot of data to read through to understand those types of trends in conversation happening, for example, across an organization, especially if it's a large organization. But if you're looking to drive changes within your organization, for example, rolling out a new technology, having an understanding of that conversation can really help you communicate in ways that addresses employees' needs, which makes your communications more effective. And then the next one is crafting communications that engage your audience. Once you have an understanding of that context, the conversations that are happening right now, and how you can insert your new communications into them, you have a goal. You have, okay, this is the type of communication I want to write. Here's the audience. Here's the style. Here's the tone that I want to hit. And AI can be really helpful in crafting those types of communications. And then also, you will see examples of how AI is not only helping generate communications or content or understand the landscape of comms that you're working in, but also help engage people in the target actions. So if you're rolling out, for example, Microsoft Copilot, you want people experimenting with Microsoft Copilot in particular ways so they can tap into the productivity benefits. But that can be a lot of work. How do you make sure your communications are inspiring that type of action and equipping people with the information they need to take action? And you're not there with everybody that you're communicating with. You're not right by their side as they're reading your comms and coaching them on how to best take action. So we'll show you some ways that Copilot can actually help be that coach, take a little bit of the burden off communications folks or IT folks who are looking to push this kind of technology change. And then the last one is, once, we talked about how there's so much data across Viva Engage, and once you start Copilot adoption, you'll have people sharing, their questions of how best to leverage Copilot, or their learnings of how best to leverage Copilot, which will be different across different roles and industries. And if you can organize that information, those questions and that knowledge in ways that can be easily tapped into by people, you can power your change to be more efficient and get people up to speed on the productivity benefits of Copilot faster. Jumping into a little bit of an example here. We talked about how Viva Engage can support changes like the adoption of Microsoft Copilot, rollout, and helping people get up to speed with it. We are introducing a new purpose-built community template called the Microsoft Copilot Adoption Community. This community makes it easy for you to bring together licensed Copilot users from across your organization And in fact, with the new multi-tenant capabilities in Viva Engage, you can bring licensed Copilot users together into this same place from across different tenants within your network. And this is so we've got everyone joining, they can get communications right into one place, they can share how they're leveraging Copilot, share questions that they're asking, we get a lot of benefits from people being able to collaborate in this way to tap into social learning and learn together how best to use Copilot. But as you start your efforts to, for example, roll out Microsoft Copilot, again, it's super helpful to understand the context of the conversations that are happening within your organization. Are people apprehensive about Copilot in any particular way that you might want to know about so that you can speak to it in your rollout communications? Are people keen to learn any particular type of AI skill, for example? In talking to some of the folks here in the audience today, I heard that there's a lot of interest in learning about how to optimize how we prompt Copilot or talk to Copilot in ways that can help us get Copilot to be most effective in doing what we want it to do. So if people are talking about that and expressing an interest in learning that, we might want to prioritize communications like that. A feature like this, outside of the context of Microsoft Copilot adoption, is also really helpful for moderation purposes. From an overall employee experience perspective, a feature like what you see here, which is AI-powered network themes, where the AI reads through all the public posts and the private posts to which you have access, to surface trending themes of conversation and sentiment across your network. So this is a holistic view here, and we'll go through this in just a moment when I go through the Figma prototype. But this feature is available to admins and corporate communicators, so they can get that holistic view of the trends in conversation across their network. And the way this works is behind the scenes, the AI is reading through those posts and clustering them based on the similarity of the content of the post. So let's say you've got hundreds, possibly thousands of posts in which employees are expressing excitement about different technologies or a desire to learn particular new skills or confusion about how to leverage a technology. You can get all of that information here without reading through those hundreds or potentially thousands of posts. The AI will read through those for you and surface those trends, making it easy for you to understand where to focus your team's time and attention and how to maybe update your communication strategy so that you are better speaking to employees' needs. We can see here some of the examples of the themes that are surfaced are the AI adoption team, Microsoft Copilot, year-end results. There really is no limit on the type of themes that can be surfaced here. So it'll reflect what types of conversations are happening within your organization, and that can help you get a better understanding of what's going on. We'll jump into a little Figma prototype of this. That's a design demo. On this network analytics dashboard, I do get an overview of how people within my organization are connecting on Viva Engage, how they're sharing information, and how they're forming relationships. And if I scroll down, I can see that AI-powered conversation analysis that we were just talking about here. And I could switch through the different themes that are being surfaced by the AI. Again, these are just like reflective of what types of conversation are happening within your organization. And I can see here an AI-powered summary of the conversations related to this theme, as well as the sentiment for each of the conversations, the threads that are related to that theme. So that makes it really easy for me to, once a theme has been identified, jump into the underlying post, the most popular of those underlying posts, so that I can gather more context on what's going on in my network. I'm going to pause there for a moment. Does anybody have any questions about what we've gone through so far with network analytics? Okay, got a hand right there. That's a very good question. So for this feature, this is part of Viva Engage Premium, which is available through the CNC or Viva Suite license. So no Microsoft Copilot license required. In the back there.
So how are these analytics? So we're getting, I said this in the last session, but we're getting Cardiolog implemented. So how is this AI analytics different? Is this able to drill down into specifics like the personas that are accessing the different posts, the locations that they're from? I'm just trying to understand the difference between these analytics and the third party.
Great question. So here what you can do is you get that theme overview, you get the summary, and then you see the most popular, the most engaged with posts that are related to the theme. You can click through each of those to get an understanding of who's posting, where are these posts happening, like in which communities, or are they happening on people's storylines. So I can give you, I think, a bit of the context that you're looking for. Awesome. Right here. Great question. So that's powered by Azure Cognitive Services Sentiment Analysis. So it is separate from Copilot. In a sense, so it is an AI, so it has been trained to have an understanding of nuances and expression of like negative tone or positive tone. So yeah, but in effect, yes, it is understanding from the language. Okay, so we've been talking a little bit about how AI features can help you understand what's going on across a network like Viva Engage, which again is where we're bringing people together across working groups or silos within the organization so that we can build knowledge together and create connections that can help us better achieve our goals. For example, Microsoft Copilot adoption. But when it comes to communicating, we're not just looking to reach audiences, right? That's great. It's always awesome when we know that we are effectively reaching our target audiences. We see those view counts go up. But there's more to why you're communicating than just making sure information gets in front of people. You're looking for some sort of mindset shift or a change in conversation or an action to be taken. And that can be as potentially, well, straightforward. It's not always straightforward, but helping people get information about how to access a new technology or ways to start trying using it. Or it can be more complex, like getting people to share their stories of how they experience some of our cultural values at work, like how they felt included at work. And so what we're looking for there is like for people to take an action, to get the communications and then take the desired action. But again, that's really hard. We're not right there with everybody, helping them interpret the communications and helping them take next steps. But that's where we're starting to see that Copilot might be able to help. So if we take the example of Microsoft Copilot adoption, what we really want in early days of rollout of a new technology like this is people to not only understand how to access it, how to use it, but experiment with using it. Try it and then share their stories of how they have found Copilot to be useful in their role. We also want people to, if they have questions, surface those questions and surface them openly in ways that can benefit everyone, because we all know that, if you've got a question, probably 5 other people in the room have the same question too. And if you post it into a place where you've got a bunch of people who might have a little bit more knowledge or experience than you on a topic, well, they can help you answer that question more quickly than if you were just, trying one person, the next person, the next person. So here we can see an example of Copilot conversation starters. And conversation starters from Copilot and Viva Engage help people understand what type of content is most valuable to be posting on Viva Engage. So for example, if it's a community conversation starter, it might help me know what type of knowledge is needed in a community. Or if it's a conversation starter for a community or a cultural campaign that we're running, it might encourage me to share, again, my story of how I felt included here, or even things like what are my best practices for meetings or sales. We can see an example of this in action with our prototype right here. Once I have the conversation starter, so the conversation starter will give me a little bit of inspiration about, about what I might like to post about. And then once I select my conversation starter, it'll be the basis of my collaboration with Copilot on the creation of a post. So we'll see here, I've got 3 conversation starters just below where I might start to draft a post here. And these are giving me 3 different ideas of how to productively participate on Viva Engage in ways that align with the goals of my communities and my organization. So you can see here, we've got 1, foster a culture of recognition. This is a general best practice of employee experience. So in Copilot and Viva Engage, we do have a library of conversation starters that have been built with a people science team to encourage the type of communications that can build a stronger culture. We see an example here with that, foster a culture of recognition, help you recognize your peers and celebrate one another. But we also see conversation starters encouraging people to catch up with and participate in key communities. So again, here we have the example of the Microsoft Copilot adoption community, which is a big priority for the organization and something that I as a user am involved in. And then we have the Give campaign, which is an initiative that we're running across our organization to increase volunteering and giving back. And so what Copilot is helping me do is understand, here are my top opportunities for how to engage with my network, contribute to it, connect with people, And then once I have an idea of what I'd like to take action on, the Copilot will give me a little bit of context, helping me understand, hey, this community that I'm suggesting, that Copilot is suggesting that I participate in, it's telling me it's all about how Microsoft Copilot can enhance our strengths and increase productivity at work. Share how you leverage Copilot in your day-to-day work, along with Copilot questions, learnings, and discoveries. So again, instead of just receiving an email that says, okay, here are some great ways to start using Copilot, I'm now a bit more actively involved in being part of setting an example for how to use Copilot, but also seeing other people set examples of how to use Copilot. And that can be much more inspiring and encouraging for me when it comes to me actually taking action. So here, what I'm gonna do is start working with Copilot to maybe get a little bit more information to brainstorm a way that I'd like to share my Copilot story. It'll give me a little bit of context into what are some recent conversations happening in this community. So here, Copilot is basing our collaboration based on that conversation starter that we selected, but it's also pulling in data from the location that I'm looking to post into. So go back to the first thing we talked about, which is with a new communication, we're always joining a conversation that's already happening, right? So how can we make sure that we're mindful of that context? And here, Copilot equips me with that because it has access to the posts that have been recently created in that community, and it'll give me a sense of, okay, here are some ideas of how you can join that community, but in a way that's, it's on the right vibe, And so once I have that little bit of brainstorming happening with Copilot where we're like, okay, you're giving me some information about what I might like to post about. Well, now it's time to get started writing, right? I'm feeling inspired. I feel like I have something to say, something to add now. But the blank page can be pretty daunting. But luckily with Copilot, we have a lot of capabilities here to not only help me ideate on what I might like to post, which can be great, but also get me from zero to a draft faster to get me more comfortable with expressing what I've uniquely got to say. So you can see here for people who are, whether you're new to Copilot collaboration or you've been trying it out for a while now, we have a menu of prompts that you can send to Copilot to help you understand how best to collaborate with it. So again, I might do things like brainstorm with Copilot, get a list of best practices for career discussions, et cetera. But I'm in the drafting phase now, so I might say, give me a post template about, but I can customize it. So I'll say, give me a post template about sharing 2 best practices of how to use Microsoft Copilot to improve productivity for corporate communicators. So here what I've done is I've communicated to Copilot what my goal for this post is and how it can help me draft a great post. And specifically, I'm not just asking for a draft, I'm asking for a template because what I'd like it to do is give me an outline or the scaffolding of a post, and then I can personalize it. And in fact, what Copilot in this context will do is coach me to keep my Copiloted content authentic by suggesting that I add my own knowledge or experiences or style to the post. So I'll go ahead and do that now. And then I have this chat available with Copilot, and it's almost like having a good friend or editor, someone who's tag teaming with you on the creation of a post. You can ask really any type of question that you want of Copilot to get feedback. You could say, something simple like, how can I make my draft more engaging? And it won't just give you general best practices. Like if you go to ChatGPT or something like that, you're like, how can I write a social media post? It'll be super engaging. That's great. But here what it does is it's answering with that knowledge of best practices, but also with an awareness of your particular post. So as you're collaborating with Copilot in this chat context here, it is aware of the draft that you have on the left-hand side as well as your previous chat history. So it's really giving you that personalized feedback that you can then hopefully take action on. So you can say, here it's telling me that one way you can make your post more engaging is by asking readers to consider or share examples of how they use Copilot to increase productivity. And that checks out too because it's giving me feedback based on my draft, based on our chat history, and also based on that Copilot conversation starter that we selected that pulled in data from across my network to inform how I might write an optimal communication for this context. And something that we're really excited about with this feature is that Copilot can not only collaborate with you on your entire post, but you could select a particular aspect of your post, for example, that last paragraph, and get feedback on that in particular, or ask Copilot to rewrite it in some particular way, maybe changing the tone, adding a few emojis. But here I did just get the guidance from Copilot to add a call to action to my post. So I'll ask it to rewrite to include a call to action. So I get the kind of engagement on my post that I'm hoping for. Cool. So again, we've seen here with this Copilot collaboration, we do provide a menu of prompts to help people who are new to Copilot collaboration get started with how best to leverage this technology. But the chat it's extremely flexible. If you are familiar with ChatGPT, it is quite similar to that. But imagine it like kind of having a collaborator who's right there by your side on the right as you're drafting these posts. It's nice to have a sounding board, get some feedback and tag team a little bit. Any questions about Copilot and Viva Engage? And then we'll go into some best practices for prompting Copilots in general, which I know a few are interested in. Yes, in the front.
When we started with the Copilot topic, there was a Copilot COE template available, which creates a Microsoft Teams solution. And now we have this Viva Engage solution. So it seems that this is the better way to use to do communication, to engage people than the Teams template we got. Yeah?
Interesting.
Do you agree with that?
I mean, I'm biased. But what, in your opinion, makes one better than the other?
I think the Copilot features are here much more helping you to write something, because in Teams you don't get any suggestions to do that.
Yeah, that's very interesting. That's a very interesting point, and we've been observing that as well. A lot of the Teams use case are very productivity focused, and this is productivity, but there's a lot of creativity as well infused in that, and it makes it. It's a very different style of AI collaboration to be trying to hit productivity and creativity as opposed to just productivity. So yeah, we're definitely happy to hear that this seems like it would well meet the needs related to that combination. But again, this is our first version. We're really excited for feedback on it. We've got an amazing team working on these features right now. So if you have feedback, know that it will be integrated and acted on and creatively solutioned around. So please do take the time to share us the feedback. We're very eager for it. Positive, negative, and neutral, speaking of sentiment. Any other questions? Here we go.
As an instructor at various colleges here in Florida, I plan to use this when it comes to creating things like activities, lessons,
Cool.
Assignments, things like that. Who owns the rights to this stuff? And like, for instance, could I use AI to generate things that could then be used in a textbook that would then be sold later?
That's a very interesting question. I think one that as an industry/society we're still figuring out. Does anyone in the audience have an answer on that one?
Yeah. The data that you create and use with Copilot, including your prompts and the responses, are only available to people inside your tenant based on their security control, the security controls you put in place. So nothing you send is given to us as Microsoft. We can't see it. We can't run telemetry on it. We can't train our models. It is your data. And that's one of the key security promises of Copilot in Microsoft 365 is that it is on this platform that you own.
So, part two, how do I cite that?
Yeah, if you, I know for sure we have a link, and it might be on the Trust Center. I'll see if I can find it before the end of the session, but we have this very well documented. And we also, Microsoft indemnifies our customers for intellectual property things. So if you are, in your world, pulling data in from the web, we make sure that we're protecting you from intellectual property concerns there as well.
And to make sure we quickly hit all the points of the description of the underlying technology for this Copilot here. This Copilot is giving you access to a large language model via a chat-style collaboration. So that will take some understanding of how best to prompt or collaborate with Copilot. And we have some of those best practices right up here. So first and foremost, we saw through Copilot conversation starters, for example, and then further how I asked for a custom post template where I communicated, hey, I want a post template about sharing 2 best practices. I could have gone on a little bit more and said, please make sure to include emojis in my, or put it in the style of someone cool's voice. But yeah, so if I communicate my goal to Copilot, it can then most effectively help me reach my goal. So Copilot's not a mind reader, you know? So in your post to Copilot, you really want to be communicating effectively what you're trying to do. And if the first time it doesn't work, we have, jump down to number 6 here, Copilot thrives on feedback. So if you ask for something and it's like a little bit off, it doesn't really quite understand what you meant when you said, please make it professional or exciting or enthusiastic or something like that, you can just refine it. Again, it's a little bit like working with a person. Effective communication is key to teamwork. But number 2 here is, like, interestingly, we also want to be clear and concise when communicating with Copilot. So we don't want to write it a book about our goal exactly. That would also somewhat defeat the purpose, because if you're writing a book about your goal, like, you probably don't need help writing the communications. So it's like you want to be clear and concise, but you also want to share your goal. You might also want to set some boundaries. Hey, I would like my post to be a maximum character limit, or please don't bring in too much information about XYZ. And then providing an example can be an amazing way to effectively prompt Copilot. So if you've got a post that you wrote in the past and you just thought was amazing, it's like a perfect expression of your style and the maybe layout of a post that you like to write, the focus on personal examples or just general best practices, you can, in the chat that we just showed, you can say, hey, Copilot, write me a post about da-da-da-da, and put it in the style of this example. And then you can put a little colon there. And then just copy and paste your example into that chat. And now Copilot will collaborate you with an awareness of an example of what you're looking for, which can help it, be on target. And then mind your context. Copilot, it's not a single shot experience. It's not like you're saying every time that you chat with Copilot or send it a prompt, it's fresh. Copilot is aware. It's like, every time you open up a chat, it's like you're meeting Copilot, and it's going to be aware of the conversation that you've had. So every turn that you take, every new piece of information that you give it, every point of feedback that you give it, it's going to be collaborating you with a mindfulness of that. And we do have a feature within our Copilot where you can clear that context if you feel like, some guidance that I gave to Copilot previously, I'm kind of deviating from that now. Maybe you read something in network analytics and you realize, I got to shift my tone when I'm communicating this thing I got to do tomorrow. So yeah, you can always refresh it, but it's nice to know that that it's collaborating with you with the context of the type of feedback that you've given it in the past, because it means you don't have to reiterate yourself again and again every single time. And then don't feel like you need all the answers. Something really interesting about Copilot or large language model collaboration in general is taking an almost like meta, one step over it approach, where you're like, okay, you go into the chat and you're like, I have a goal in mind, but I'm not really sure how to use Copilot for this. You can chat with Copilot and say, Copilot, I want help doing this. How can you help me? That's pretty interesting. So it's like, Copilot, how can you help me write a great post? And Copilot will respond with an answer on that. Copilot, how can you help me learn this new thing or do my homework? And so explore with Copilot. Ask Copilot how it can best help you, and it can give you some very interesting ideas of places to get started. Cool, and most importantly, for all of us to learn together, share what you learn openly, whether it's on LinkedIn or Viva Engage. This can be super helpful for inspiring others and opening up conversations that can help us best figure out how to leverage Copilot for our roles or our industries or just on a personal level.
Thank you, Christy, for highlighting all these awesome ways. Actually, you've done a couple different ways that AI can help you in communicating. One was going through insights and seeing how it can, tell you how effective your communication is, who's getting it, what the sentiment is. And that's really an amazing way to get that feedback all through AI. And then from there, you talked about how you can use AI as your partner in collaborating and writing up something for communications. And I'm going to take a different tactic now and talk about how we're using AI in a different way in Engage to help you basically make your communities more effective. Like, one of the things that we talked about earlier was setting up a Copilot community for change adoption, like you're rolling out Copilot in your organization. And if you have any experience doing this in the past, it's not just as simple as like, oh, I create this community and everyone just goes and does it and I don't have to do anything else, right? It runs itself. That's not how it goes. And so, it takes a village. It takes a lot of things to actually make this sort of community effective. And we've been building some really cool tools backed with AI to help there. So one of the things that we're doing is we have a tool called Answers, which I'll be walking through a bit more, that you can use to identify questions that have already been asked in the community to help people get answers as quickly as possible. With that, what's really interesting about it is it reduces that overhead of answering duplicate questions. It also reduces the work that your experts are having to do in your community to stay on top of all of these questions, because they're not getting hounded day in, day out with all the same things that everyone's asking. It also, with Copilot, you can use the prompts that are in the community to encourage people to share their experience, especially in something like a Copilot community. We were hearing from someone earlier, I was talking to someone yesterday who was doing this in their community. They were actually encouraging everyone that I think they had to post every 30 days about something they were learning from Copilot. And it's great to think about using Copilot to help you in drafting that and sharing that and building that culture of knowledge sharing in your organization. And then, using AI, the other aspect of AI that we're doing here is using it to help get the right people in the loop to help you answer the question that you might have that no one's answered before. So through these tools, what we're seeing is we can, this is like a modern approach to community adoption and to deploying a new solution at your company. And through these tools, we're able to get you the answers, get your employees the answers to their questions a lot faster, and build all that muscle around the new tool and the new technology, because you can focus your efforts on where you need to spend them rather than chasing down the same answers to the same questions all day. So at the core of this is a functionality we've launched. About a year ago, we launched it in its own tab called Answers. And 2 months ago now, we launched it in every community for people who have like a Viva Suite license or the CNC, the Communications and Communities license. And this is an ability called Answers. And what Answers does is it's all backed with AI. And as someone goes to ask a question in your community, it looks to see, has this question already been asked or something similar? And then you can see if that question's already there. You can look at it. Hopefully, you're getting that answer right away. Otherwise, you can, at least what I find personally is it helps me refine the question that I'm asking, because I might get a little bit of info, but now I can ask a better question that gets more to the core of what it is I'm actually looking for. And then I can post that question, and Answers loops in experts to answer the question through what we call the Questions for You feed over in the Answers tab. And through this functionality, actually, what's really cool here is this is actually, the search is large language model based, so this is an AI-based search, which means it looks at the intent. It looks at the context of what you're saying, not just the syntax, not just those explicit words, which means it even works in different languages. It's really funny to see this when you're, like I was watching on someone's network recently, and they're primarily a French company, and someone asked a question in English, and the French answer came back, and they knew enough French to say, that's actually right. And then you can click on it, and Engage will translate for you to show you all the details. But because of the power of this being a large language model-based search, you can have that. You can have it go ahead and find something that's very, very similar and very related, even if you're using completely different words. The other cool thing that we've done with Answers and Communities is, again, using AI here, we've indexed all of the existing questions in your community. So if you already have a community of practice or like a support community in your organization where people have been contributing and asking questions for years, you can leverage all of the knowledge that's already in the community through this functionality. One of the things that you'll notice, though, is with the new question post type, this new publisher, we have a separate field. We have a question field and then a description field. But in the old one, we just had the description. You didn't have a separate question field. So we've actually also used AI behind the scenes here to derive what the question would be from your old questions. We don't show that to you, just in case we don't get it quite right. But we derive that question, and that's actually what we're using behind the scenes to show you those related questions, which is just really cool technology when you actually think about it. So we're inferring these titles. And again, it helps you to instantly get value from the knowledge you've been capturing for years in your communities. So with that, I'm just going to show a quick end-to-end demo. This is actually going to show that whole loop of someone going in, looking for a question, and looking for a question, and then we'll also walk through the flow of someone being able to answer it. So let's dig in. So when you go into the community, as you can see, you can go start typing the question, and in real time, you get these related results. In this case, you can see that you get something pretty close to what you're looking for, so you can click on it, go to it, and you're like, oh yeah, that's great. That answers my question, or maybe not, I don't know. But you can go back, and now you have a new question because you got the info that you were looking for. But what's cool in these conversations too is you can do things like upvoting. Someone can mark best answer. In this case, this does have a best answer marked. So you can have some confidence here in the answer that you're looking at, being able to really answer the question. But now that's just led you to another question. So you go in and you have a different question that you're asking here about, can it help me generate ideas? Can it help me in other ways? And you're not finding a good match. You're not quite finding what you're looking for. You go back and you actually go and ask the question here, and you need to fill out the description, a bunch of other little details. And one of the cool things that we have here is also AI generated, or basically AI identifying topics that you can add to the conversation. At that point, then you can just select which of those topics that we're inferring from the context, choose them, and then post into the community. And you'll see that your post is there with that topic associated with it. Now, those topics are actually really useful and really powerful because one of the things they do is they loop in experts based on both other activity they've done in the network, like if you know them, if you've worked with them, if they've engaged on this sort of topic before, and also people who explicitly follow this topic. From here, then, what's cool is we then take that question and route it to someone. So this question in this case is being routed to an expert who sees it. They get this notification in a couple ways. They could get it in their Outlook inbox. They could get it in their Engage inbox. They also get this through Teams notification. And the Teams notification model is really cool because what it enables someone to do is just right in that flow of work, right in your activity, you see, oh, there's a new question I can answer. And you can dive in, respond right in the flow. And then right in the flow of work, you can answer the question. So you don't, it's like reduces the disruption that you actually have on your day. Then, as you can see also that there's a topic associated with this conversation. And in this case, this user says, hey, wait, this is a topic I care about. This is Copilot. I'm answering a lot of questions here. So they can go to the topic page within Engage, look at other questions with that topic associated, see that it's something that does interest them, and then choose to follow this topic. And then they will get in their questions for you feed in answers, questions that are coming in related to this topic, so they'll be able to answer them more quickly. And then also soon, I think by the end of this quarter, we'll be releasing the ability for you to subscribe to these topics for notifications. So if you're a subject matter expert in a community of practice, you can choose which topics you're responsible for in your community, set notifications, and you'll get Teams notifications that will help you stay on top immediately. You don't have to wait for any of the daily digests. You don't have to wait for the questions for you to send it your way. So that's one of the things we'll be launching very soon. So excited about that. It's something people have been asking for a really long time. With the person who asked the question in the first place, they want to stay on top of things. We have a couple different ways for them to know that this question's been answered. Of course, we send them a Teams notification, so it's again in their activity feed. They can go and look at that, click on it, go into the full screen view, see the answer, feel really great about life. They also get emails. We have a couple other different ways, and it also shows up in their inbox. But from here, they can do things like mark best answer if they think that the question, that answer was particularly good and helps others. It also helps it get indexed and a higher priority in our search queues. And they can then, they can mark best answer. They can then go on and take care of other questions. This is in the activity feed in answers. One of the things here when you're running such a community is that you have experts, and these experts end up kind of getting overworked. You have a lot of stuff they need to do on top of their day-to-day job, or this is part of their day-to-day job. And so we recognize that one of the things you need to do is have tools to keep them motivated and engaged. This is where experts come in, and they can see the badges that they've earned through the community and through their engagement in answering questions. And then you can also see the results of what they've done in terms of insights, because we also have insights at two different levels for answers. One is for your individual insights for questions you've answered, so you can quantify the impact that you're having in the organization. And then the other thing is we also have global analytics for the organization where you can see how many people are asking and answering questions, what's your best answer rate, how long does it take to get your first answer to a question. And it's really fun to see this change and grow over time. Like we see within the Microsoft network, I think we're down to 3 or 4 hours for first answer to a question, which is just phenomenal. So we're just really excited about the functionality that we've been able to bring to help people stay on top of these communities and stay on top of the knowledge in their communities through AI. So the next thing I wanted to touch on, though, is another way that we're using generative AI in Engage to help you stay on top. This is actually for when you're setting up a new community, you often have to seed it with new questions. So in this case, if you're rolling out something like Copilot, we have a tool that we're calling the intelligent importer, where you can take a document, it can be any document. It's really cool to play with this with like a policy document, or I have a document that is Copilot 101, and it'll look through the document, identify Q&A pairs, let you edit them and view them, and then you can post them to the community. And then that helps seed the community with some knowledge straight off the bat, so that when people go into the community for the first time as you're deploying Copilot, it's not all empty, which is really great. And you can also tailor it then to your use cases in your own organization. So we'll do a quick demo of what that looks like as well. So this is called Intelligent Importer, and it lives over in the right-hand rail and in the community. What you can do from there is, again, you pick a document. So in this case, it's a document on the computer, and it scans through. It takes a couple minutes because it is actually using large language model and AI for generative AI here to go and find it. But you can see that it effectively locates different questions and answers out of the document. What's neat here is it's actually deriving it from the contents of the document. You can then go through and pick which ones you want to post to help seed your community. And then you can choose, it lets you know that your name's gonna be associated with all these questions. But then you can see, you get nice feedback that all of these posts were made to the community, and your community is now seeded with some new knowledge. So that way also, as people go to ask questions in their community, all of this will show up as related questions. And for the Copilot community, this will also help propagate the content in the right-hand rail module for top questions in the community. So that's Intelligent Importer. That is something we GA'd just a couple weeks ago. But there's more, as you're building up this knowledge, one of the things is that knowledge is only useful if people can find it and access it. And we've been doing a lot of work here to make this knowledge more available to people in your organization. The first thing we're doing, and we're rolling out right now, actually, I think we started last week, hopefully it's going out without a glitch and you'll all get it soon, is the ability to find this content from answers in these knowledge communities, this Q&A from communities in workplace search. So if you go to office.com and sharepoint.com, you can see results from answers showing up in there, which makes this knowledge more accessible to everybody, it's really helpful, because then you don't have to send people into the community to get the answers to their questions. In the place where they're naturally going, they're likely to get the answer. And what's cool here is also that we have the ability to ask a question. So if you didn't quite get the answer you're looking for, you can hit this little prompt on the right-hand side. You can start filling out your question, and that will ask in answers as well, and we'll get the experts to engage and answer for you. The really cool part about that, though, is that there's work we're doing right now to bring all this knowledge into what we call Substrate at Microsoft. With it being in Substrate, Search will be able to use it to interleave results, give you more accurate results, but it also makes it possible for this knowledge to be fed into Copilot. So when your employees are looking for answers to questions that might be answered in any of these communities, Copilot can use this knowledge in Engage as a reference. And so it also empowers your employees to, when you're getting results from Copilot, you should be skeptical, you should be curious, you should look at it. You can look at the source of this, you can go into the conversation that exists in Engage, ask more there or engage more, get more details if you want. And it's just super powerful as a way of capturing the latest knowledge in your organization. So this is coming soon. We're hoping in the next 6 months to get this out. But this is actually the thing that is really, to me, the culmination of being able to capture this knowledge and then feed it in, so you're getting the latest information in your organization. All of this together really helps make your community a lot more effective, a lot more efficient. So, it saves you time. In fact, I've got a slide here of data that we have recently dug up in looking at, this is actually just 2 months post the GA of Answers in Communities. But we're seeing by indexing the existing questions that you already have in your communities, 45% of the time when someone goes to ask a new question, they're clicking on one of those questions. So they're getting some insight, some information that they're looking for pretty much immediately, or about half the time. And then from there, it helps them to do things like ask a better question, or maybe they can just get back to work. As a result, we're also seeing that through this, people are saving about 2 hours per employee a month, which is incredible to really think about like getting that much savings. And the tool of routing questions to experts and getting experts to engage is helping us get answers faster. So the new time to answer questions is improved by between 10 and 13 hours, which is incredible. Like if it used to take you 24 hours to get a question, it's now like 10 or 11 to get the answer. And then the best answer rate is also increasing by 10% just by driving this engagement and making it possible for your experts to have more time to answer questions in your organization and put their energy where it needs to be. The other aspect, though, I want to highlight here is something we're working on. This is also something we're hoping to get out, is the ability, as Copilot answers questions, and I said, you should be skeptical. You should, we all need to judge what is it, is this true? And often when you're asking a question, you're not in that position of being able to know, does this actually apply to my case? So we're working also to make it possible for you to post these questions over in Engage so that you can do what we call human in the loop and looping in these experts to get them to verify or to look at this and say, yeah, this seems right. This is accurate for our use case, which is also another really cool power that we're building. So yeah, any questions about any of this? I think that was everything I wanted to share about what we're doing with knowledge.
You used the term topics when you were talking about tagging answers, and
Yep.
we all know Viva Topics is retiring. So is this kind of the new way to use?
It's actually not new at all. So the question is about topics. And Engage actually has had, as Yammer, we've had topics for a decade, if not more. And in fact, it was 4 years ago at Ignite that we started talking to CJ and Naomi and the topics team about merging our topic set together because we had such a rich corpus of topics and connections of all of this knowledge. With the topics retirement, we're just going back to what we had before. So topics are still central, it's just no longer Viva Topics. So you can still, just as you could prior to Viva Topics, add a topic to a conversation, go to that page, see all of the content related to that topic. That's gonna still be there. But we've added to it because now we can identify with AI what topics you might wanna add at posting time. And we've also, like I said, added the ability to follow, which I guess we've had, but we're adding the subscription also so you can get notifications. So we're still investing in topics, and it's also one of the big signals that helps loop in experts to get them to answer questions through the Questions for You feed. Good question.
Yeah, can you place privacy around what Copilot, where it collects its knowledge and data? For instance, showed how you uploaded a file. Does Copilot, can it search emails and SharePoint files across your tenant and then a lucky user asks just the right question and maybe get an answer back they should?
Yeah, a couple different ways. I'll talk about from the answers standpoint. When you're looking at related questions, those questions are from communities that you're a member of and public communities. So we do respect public and private communities and don't leak information from private communities through either the Questions for You feed or through the related questions. So from an answers perspective, that's what we do there. As we're adding answers content into Copilot, I think we're starting with public information, but we'll be evolving that in time.
And Intelligent Importer, which Erin demoed just before, is a great example of how a human in the loop in this data sharing process might identify that they've got a document that has limited access right now, because it's been in a preparation mode, but now it's ready. Maybe it's like Copilot 101, like Aaron mentioned, and we're like, okay, we feel ready to share this information in this document more broadly with our organization. So we're gonna upload it through Intelligent Importer, have it turn all of that information into question and answer pairs, and then now it is readily available and accessible by our broader organization through Viva Engage, but then also through now Microsoft Copilot. Whereas previously, if that document was private to the team prepping it before it was ready to be shared with the broader organization, people looking for that information on Microsoft Copilot wouldn't have found it if that was the only place that that information was kept. So hope that answers your question.
And Copilot in general, when it's answering questions, it's using information scoped to your permission and your control. So it's your emails, but no one else can see that.
Yes.
So that's just another aspect of the privacy aspects here of Copilot. One more.
Yep, the licensing. It's a little confusing on the different E's and premium, and then you had mentioned something here also. I've heard before.
Sure.
There's like a one-pager table that
We do actually.
what has.
Yeah, we have a really nice document of like what you get with which license. Answers has traditionally been available both with the Viva Suite and with Viva Topics. And with Topics being retired, we're now available fully Viva Suite. And then the CNC license is the one that you have for, and Dan and Jason can speak more to, like all of the other amazing capabilities we have around communications that we've been talking about at a couple other sessions. So does that help? Yeah, it is. I can get it for you afterwards. I can show you where that is.
To see answers in Copilot, you would need both Suite and Copilot.
Or CNC.
Or CNC plus Copilot.
Yeah, you think you would need CNC and Copilot. I will double check. Well, because you're not seeing, we don't have the answers
you
content.
wouldn't have answers.
Yeah, you
if
wouldn't have the
had
answers
CNC
content at
plus
all.
Suite.
Right, exactly.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.